I have not played any of the Soulsborne games. To be more specific, I've played Elden Ring and beaten it, but I'm horrible at the game, trust me. So today I just decided to experience this acclaimed series that's always spoken of in reverence. And as this is a mostly exploration based game, I decided to do this mostly blind. I've looked up one or two things, but I'll be mentioning what I looked up and when during the video in the spirit of transparency. It all begins with me waking up in a cell in the undead asylum, and the keys are dropped into the cell. I pick the key up, open the gate, and leave. Right outside, I find these skinny undead guys, which I start practicing the controls on. And then holy shit, what is that? Moving on, I find a bonfire, which is the checkpoint system, which I must say is a huge novelty for 2011. I head through the giant double doors, then I get jump scared. I'll try to fight the asylum demon off, but you can probably guess how this will end up. And just like that, I learned the first lesson that this game has to teach me. If you don't actually sit at the bonfire, it does not count as a checkpoint. I'm dead inside. I make my way back to the asylum demon. I catch a glimpse of an open door, so I realize that's my ticket out of here. I run to it, but I get squished like a pancake right at the edge. But to my surprise, I'm still alive with 0 HP. Going further, I find my first real weapon, and this explains why I'm not doing any damage to the demon. And yeah, this is already so much better. Going up the stairs, I got squished by this rock, which opened a path behind me. Inside there's this NPC, and thank God I run into him, because he gives me the Estus Flask, which is the primary mode of healing within this game. He also conveniently leaves behind a key which allows me to reach the asylum demon again, allowing me to get my rematch. With a proper weapon, I wasn't playing around, and I was gonna get him back.
That's a lot of damage!
This guy was easy enough, and I beat him on that same attempt. I left through the doors behind him, and I gotta say, this game does have atmosphere. I mean, the graphics aren't anything to write home about, but the vibe is unlike any other. I climb up the stairs, head to the top, and get carried off to Firelink Shrine. Firelink Shrine is probably the most memorable and most well-known area within Dark Souls. It serves as a hub connecting all the interlinking areas and is also a place of solace from all the turmoil of the land that is Lordran. I find a side path, head down some stairs, down some elevators, and reach my first area. And before even realizing it, I've already left New Londo and reached the Valley of Drakes. And I didn't realize this was a much later game area, but that lack of knowledge was rectified by this enemy shortly after. After realizing this was not the way I was supposed to go, I found the actual path I was meant to follow. I followed a trail up the mountain which led me to Undead Burg. Yeah, that's more like it. The enemies here are much weaker than the one that slapped my cheeks earlier. There's nothing much to say about Undead Burg. It teaches you the basics, mainly that any enemy can whoop your ass if you're not careful. And it's also a great first post-tutorial area. This was lesson number 2. If you get outnumbered, you will die at any time. Up the stairs, I get another jump scare, this time by a dragon. I run all the way up to the tower, cheese these guys through the fog gate. Yeah, please don't judge me. And I ignore the arrows coming from somewhere and fight the Taurus demon. This guy isn't too hard, but he did kill me once. Second time around, I noticed I needed to deal with the archers to get any peace, so I killed them first. I then faced the demon again, this time it ended in victory. After collecting the rewards, I meet with Soler of Astora. I don't remember what he said. I run across the bridge to get burned by the dragon. I got up, found the shortcut to the bonfire, went back up, and found a side road under the bridge. I was thinking, this game isn't too bad, it's not too hard. At this point, this is the first of the couple of times I looked things up. I just wanted a better weapon, and I found out that cutting off the dragon's tail will get you a strong weapon for this point. I got the sword, and yes, it was strong. I got a bit overconfident, feeling that the sword was gonna carry, but this guy had other plans. I gave up trying to defeat him and went further along. I started fighting the spore and found his weak spot almost immediately. I went up the buildings and got cornered. Lesson number 3, never get cornered. I met the most important person in the kingdom, headed down some random elevator, and this is one of the moments that the game truly blew me away. This elevator takes you all the way back to the Firelink Shrine bonfire. I actually couldn't believe the level design and world structure that the game had. It was unbelievable. Like I already said, the atmosphere was insane, but the gameplay is a bit janky, not gonna lie. But that is what gives it its charm, and it is a unique experience. It's kinda like polished jank. Heading back, I got cooked by a gang of these guys. Heading up the stairs, I find the gargoyles, which are a mandatory boss fight that I have to beat in order to complete my objective. So naturally, I beat them first try. Either the weapon is broken or I'm that good. I rang the bell and headed back downstairs, and got destroyed by this demon. Second time around, I opted to run past him into Darkroot Basin. This might be my favorite area within the game, aesthetically speaking. It has cool enemies, a very interesting structure, and a lot of branching paths. And before I know it, I find myself in battle with a dragon in the Valley of the Drakes. I immediately realize I'm not supposed to be here, so I quickly run back up to Darkroot Garden. I find this bonfire behind a wall, and trying to reach it, I realize that some walls can be destroyed. I have no idea how many of these I've missed, but I don't think I found another one within the entire playthrough. I headed up a tower, through a fog wall, and encountered the Moonlight Butterfly. And all I can say is this guy was a pain. He looks simple enough, he only has a couple of attacks and loops, but he gave me a lot of trouble. I defeated the butterfly and headed back to find the strange door. Then I tried to fight the Hydra and died. Next attempt I switched my attention to the tower, and on my second attempt I managed to defeat Havel. Headed up the tower and found myself back in Undead Burg. I have to be honest, at this point I was completely lost and was searching randomly for the path forward. When I made my way back to the bridge, I realized the key I obtained led to a new area, the Undead Settlement. And the boss encounter in this area is a bad one. It's a 3-on-1 gang fight, but thankfully the 2 enemies die in one hit, which allowed me to focus on the Capra demon himself. Managed to get him on my second attempt. I get the key to the depths and immediately get clobbered. This happened again and again. Made my way through the depth, killed this giant rat, made it through the labyrinth, and out into the area I was supposed to be in. There were a lot of enemies and I died. Then I got lost after restarting from the bonfire, and found a completely different path to where I was supposed to go, which led me to jump scare number 3, after which I was very weary of roofs. I made my way back and was up against my next boss fight. This guy was pretty tough, mostly his gigantic size and his janky hitbox. After defeating him, I made my way back to a familiar area. This time around I can actually do damage to the enemies down here, which felt good, but nothing about the next hour or so was going to feel that way again, because I just made it to Blighttown. I heard of this area even before I played the game, and let me tell you, it lived up to its reputation. It was complete hell, and made only worse by the fact that once you make it all the way down, there's an even worse area waiting for you down there. Crossing the Lake of Poison, I make it to a spidery webbed area, found a fog wall, and as I entered, I was almost, pleasantly surprised by what I found. In all seriousness, this was the worst experience I had fighting a boss in this game. She doesn't have a lot of moves, but the lava she spits out keeps blocking the best and optimal ways to run at the perfect angle at the perfect time, which made me eat a lot of deaths to her AoE explosion attack. After finally killing her, I find the second Bell of Awakening and rang it. Saw a cutscene and knew exactly where I needed to go. On my way back, I run into this giant serpent. I guess it's foreshadowing for heading into Sen's Fortress, being filled with snakes and all. After which, I head forward to Sen's Fortress. Sen's Fortress is a house filled with giant snake people, traps, and just pain. The only thing you have to worry about is getting to the top of the tower. which is much easier said than done. Once I made it to the top, I cut this giant down because he kept throwing giant boulders at me. Went to the next boss, and I'm pretty sure this is the second easiest boss in the game, aside from Pinwheel. I defeated him first try. I interacted with the circle, which somehow summoned these creatures that carried me off into Anor Londo, which is objectively the most impressive looking area within the game. Only nitpick I have is that it's not completely connected to the rest of the world like the rest of the areas are. Everything just seemed grand in comparison to the rest of the game. It has extremely impressive architecture, equally impressively large enemies, while I'm not a fan of these archers, as they're the most annoying enemies within the game, and they killed me a lot of times. At this point, I took a break from the game, came back a couple of days later, but I really wasn't feeling it, which was the worst time that this could have happened, as I was about to encounter one of the most iconic duo in Souls history. And I know this because I've heard of these guys long before I laid my hands on this game. Anyway, I killed Lawtrack, made my way through the boss fog, which led me to Ornstein and Snow, aka the Duo of Pain. And I did myself a disservice here, because that day I wanted to collect some footage, but I knew if I kept hitting the wall with Ornstein and Snow, I would have quit the game and never returned. So after a couple of deaths, I summoned Solaire and defeated the boss on my third attempt. I found a magnificent looking chest in a room. I went back to Firelink Shrine, placed the Lord Vessel, which unlocked the ability to teleport at bonfires. I got 4 more objectives: Seath the Scaleless, 4 Kings, the Bed of Chaos, and Gravelord Nito. And so I started making my way down to the catacombs, found a new weapon, and realized how much I was being handicapped by the Drake Sword. I kept using it because I had no idea about attribute scaling, and switching weapons to any other weapon that actually had scaling was a game changer. So I made my way down to the catacombs, fighting respawning skeletons that will not die unless the necromancer is killed, found another blacksmith, and started making my way to Gravelord Nito. And as soon as I stepped outside, I started having a miserable time in the darkness. After all that, I fought Pinwheel and made my way to this godforsaken area. After dying once, I realized that there was no way the intended way for me to play this area was without a light source, and I started looking through my inventory to find the Skull Lantern. This item made the area manageable. By manageable, I do not mean easy by any sense of the word. I found my way around the labyrinth of cliffs and found the fog door where I encountered the Gravelord Nito. This guy was alright. He dealt extremely heavy damage, and the skeletons that kept chasing after me were honestly the biggest hurdle. I quickly dealt with him in my second attempt and made my way to find the second boss soul in the demon rooms. And after all that darkness, I thought that this was a much needed visual change. But I soon come to find out that this is just a mishmash of reused enemies and reused bosses. At least this guy doesn't seem to mind my being here. For some reason he gets super angry when I desecrate the corpse, so I'll just leave it be. Never mind. Managed to clear him on my second attempt, which allowed the lava under him to fall in height, making the rest of the area traversable. Down by where the lava was, this is what I meant. Reused boss enemies. There's just a bunch of Taurus demons chilling by the lake of fire. They're immediately followed by like 8 Capra demons. I respect the game so much, but I feel like this area wasn't treated with the same level of care as the rest of the other areas. To make my point, this next boss is literally a reskin of the tutorial boss, which I did first try. Up next was the Centipede Demon, who killed me once, followed by the Bed of Chaos, which is a gimmick boss. You need to destroy the branches on either side, and at least you respawn with all your progress intact. I managed to beat it on my third attempt. Up next is the Duke's Archives. I ran into another Crystal Bull, but this time it's plugged up its weakness, if you know what I mean. And this is the type of moment that makes me realize that this game is absolutely beautiful. But F this invisible area. Unfortunately for this next area, I lost the footage, but I'm sure I died 3 or 4 times. To be safe, we'll just call it 4. That asshole destroyed all my armor, so I went to have it repaired at Andre, where I then realized he has a key item. I used the item to open a door in Darkroot Forest, which led me to the beautiful view of the Hydra. I got mauled by this giant cat, and headed over to one of the better designed boss fights, Sif. I felt bad beating up this dog because I think I'm over leveled for this fight. I went back to New Londo and went through the area, and this is one of those times I had to Google where I needed to go because I was completely lost. I saw that I needed to put on this ring and jump through the dark hole, which I did. After finding my bearings, the 4 kinks killed me once, but I managed to beat them on my second attempt. This is becoming a trend, where I beat most of the boss's second try. I placed the souls inside the Lord vessel, climbed down this ethereal looking staircase, ran past all these black knights. I died so many times to this boss. Unless you see it, you will not believe how many times I died to him. But the boss fight is absolutely phenomenal, from the soundtrack to Gwyn's design itself, the look and feel of the weapon, the area leading up to him, and I gotta say it again, the song is an absolute banger. I died again and again and again and again and again, until finally I killed Gwyn, thus defeating the final boss of Dark Souls 1. This was a bittersweet moment, as I knew this was the end of the game. The atmosphere was on point, the experience was irreplicable, and it was an overall must try. And I'm glad I never played it until now because I got to experience it at this very moment. Leave a like, leave a comment, let me know which game to try next.